Can you hear me, sir?
Absolutely, Sudhekha ji. I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, sir. I'll just introduce you to all the participants. Mr. Siva Susarla, he is the founder and managing director of RENERGii Asia, Singapore. RENERGii is a Singaporean innovation firm making Asian cities zero waste, zero pollution, and zero carbon urban spaces. He has a deep passion for building and scaling ideas through urban circular economy principles and lean innovation. Circular Cities Asia is a region's first innovation and knowledge platform to make our cities circular, smart, livable, and sustainable. The approach is to work with smaller cities, towns, and ecosystems that mirror life in large urban centers. We connect, RENERGii connects community members with innovators to identify circular opportunities that are efficient and affordable, driving employment, economic growth, social improvement, and the regeneration of natural systems. They also apply a lean, repeatable innovation process combined with circular economy principles to increase the likelihood of success for innovators. There are other projects also, and one among them, they also run RENERGii Ventures. It's a studio focused on food, feed, and agtech in Asian cities. The portfolios include startups ranging from Urban Tiller, which is a farm-to-table platform for fresh produce, and also they are engaged in valorizing low-quality food waste streams into high-quality alternative proteins for the feed industry. So we welcome you, sir, to SPA Bhopal. It's a privilege that you are here and as a part of this workshop session. Over to you for your talk, sir.
Thank you so much, Sudhekha ji. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor. Thank you so much for the invitation. When Sudhekha ji first reached out, I clarified to her, look, I'm not an architect and I have no background in civil engineering. I'm an engineer, but I'm not a civil engineer. So it was only after a full disclosure and she still said, no, it's fine, you can talk about circular economy, and then I took this up. That said, we do a lot of work in the built environment. And I'll quickly take you through that. We have a very strong view on circularity in the built environment. So while we don't have expertise in the built environment itself, we have some experience in planning for circularity and zero waste in the context of the built environment. And I'll just present it to you. Think of it as an advocacy and an internal energy framework and viewpoint. I sat through the second half of Professor Singhal's talk. I really enjoyed it. Professor Singhal, I don't know if he's still here, but really enjoyed the last bit, especially where he spoke about, where he cited Gandhiji's lines. And I always say circularity is inherent to us Asians, especially Indians. Our forefathers have practiced circularity and sustainability. It's not a new concept to us. 3-4 years ago, when I first got into WhatsApp groups in India, it's true even in Singapore, on circular economy, discussions would revolve mostly around recycling, etc., and I would feel very bad because recycling is not circular economy. And now I think the discourse is changing. We're thinking about systems level intervention. So it's a very exciting time to be in the circular economy.
I fully agree with you, Shivaji, and I'm here listening to your talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Sudhekha ji, I need your permission to share my screen.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Just a second.
No problem. So I'll present a practitioner-oriented innovator's perspective on circularity in the built environment, and I would love your feedback, and that'll obviously help us improve it.
So can you try sharing the screen?
Absolutely, I'm able to share now. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's coming.
Excellent. I think I'm having Hi all, I hope you can hear me. Surekha ji, my apologies, something happened.
No, not an issue, sir. We could actually see the screen for a moment.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we are back now. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the glitch. So I'm talking about circularity in the built environment. I'm signing in from Singapore. This is where I live and work. I've been here for about 12 years now, working in clean tech innovation and investments. In the last 5 years, I've focused exclusively on the circular economy in the context of cities. Okay, I think I'm having some issues when I'm in presentation mode, so I'll skip that. So we are, like Surekha ji said, we are an innovation company. We make Asian cities 000, zero waste, zero carbon, we mean net zero carbon, obviously, and zero pollution urban spaces using innovation as a lens. So we don't do policy advocacy, we don't do activism. All those are important pieces of the value chain, but we focus on innovation. And broadly within the urban context, we are mostly focused on food systems, built environments, and mobility systems. Doesn't mean we're not interested in energy, except we have some degree of expertise in these three areas. When it comes to built environments, we focus on how do we make built environments fully circular and maximize utilization of building assets, upcycle materials, use alternative materials, and make buildings operationally zero waste. So there are different aspects to zero waste during construction, during demolition, but also when the building is in operation, which is when most of the waste is actually generated. I've already introduced myself, so I'll skip this. Some context on the built environment in Asia. You all know this, you're experts in the space. 70% of the buildings in Asia that will be around in 2050 are yet to be built. 800 billion tons in materials are banked in building stock. These are materials that we've extracted out of the earth. 3.2 trillion tons in materials will be extracted in the next 25 to 30 years if we don't come up with an alternative paradigm of designing and developing the built environment. As architects, I think it's absolutely stunning numbers, right? For practitioners in the built environment, 3.2 trillion tons of materials need to be extracted. Prima facie, there's a lot of land in Asia, but it's also true that Asia has the lowest availability of per capita land and per capita fresh water in the world. So conventional models that have been adopted in the West on housing, for example, in the US, the average house is getting larger and larger. And if we take that model and translate it to, let's say, India or the Philippines or Vietnam, it may not work because we don't have that kind of a space and resource availability. And this presents some interesting design dilemmas, right? Should we go high? Should we go wide? There's some evidence that tall buildings use energy, water resources better. But then there's other evidence that, hey, low height buildings are more conducive for alternative materials because you don't have the same kind of structural strength needs that the skyscrapers need. So what are the dilemmas that this new constraint brings? How can we deal with them? We have internally come up with a framework for circular built environments, and I would like to present it to you. I want to clarify again, we are not civil engineers or built environment experts. We come from the perspective of circular economy. We have some evidence that some of these approaches are working, but would love to have your feedback. So we have a four-pronged, four-pillar framework for circular built environments. The first pillar is designing for disassembly. So how do you design modular buildings? How do you design enabling tools like material passports, and how do you repurpose buildings? These are all the important aspects of designing for disassembly. The second pillar of circular built environments is designing for mixed use. So how can we improve utilization? In Singapore, there was a report recently, especially during the pandemic, and it's definitely true in India as well. Most of the fantastic buildings in the central business district here in Singapore were barely used even on weekdays. On weekends, they're not used at all. Imagine how much material, how much money, how much resources used to construct those fancy buildings that are not being used at all for 3 days in a week. So how can we design the built environment for mixed use and increase utilization? Flexi use concepts become very important, right? The third is, how do we design for operational zero waste? We've done a big conference here in Singapore. We collaborate closely with the New York Center for Zero Waste Design. The concept is, how do you design buildings for better flow of materials, better segregation of wastage, and designing buildings upfront rather than as an afterthought for waste, to optimize waste management. Most buildings in the US globally are under-designed for waste management systems. So how can we better design them and process most of the waste on site? Processing, I'll test on this as well. Something has to change fundamentally. End of the pipe solutions will not work. We'll have to think about solutions at the beginning of the pipe. Designing for operational efficiency. Cost management is very important in circular environment. In circular economy, we talk about waste of all types. Operational efficiency is a form of avoiding waste. It's very, very important. Building as a service concepts, digital twins, etc., become very important. The fifth pillar that we are actively looking at, given our experience in food systems and given this current boom in Singapore in urban farming, is, can we design buildings for food production as well, right? So this is our 4-pillar framework currently. A 5th pillar might get added, and would love to have your thoughts. I'll just dig deeper a little bit into each of them, and I would love to have a discussion. So designing for disassembly, this is the picture of the Star Apartments in Los Angeles, was erected in 2014. It's a modular construction. So each component can be, you can actually take this building and recreate it elsewhere for very, very cheap. That's how it's been designed and built. So it's permanent, but it's modular, which means it's portable, right? So how can every building be built like this? In the circular economy, we talk about buildings designed like Lego bricks, right? How can every building be portable, repurposable? How about a future where we don't have to demolish a single building and just simply repurpose it? It's a challenge I think we need to throw at ourselves and figure out how to make it happen. Enabling tools are very important. Fine, I might have constructed a building that is repurposable, but think about the car market. Just because a car is being sold or repurposed, no one is willing to buy it unless it's certified. You need tools that create trust in the process, in the quality of the building and the quality of the materials. So we need to create material passports that allow for material traceability, recovery, secondary trading, repurposing, material health certificates to show maintenance, and so on, right? So we are working on designing a material passport. We started off on something, the project was shelved. We are looking at it again. So this is the first pillar, ladies and gentlemen, designing for disassembly. The second, in the interest of time, I'll just sort of rush through them. Happy to take question. Design for mixed use. I spoke about the utilization problem. This is the Tanjong Pagar Center in Singapore. It's combining use cases and functionalities. A lot of mixed use townships in India as well. I've been to a lot of them. We'll have to figure out how to optimize the utilization a bit more. I was actually it came out of a bad crisis, but I was heartened to see how many facilities were repurposed into hospitals and hospital wards and ICUs during the crisis. It was a terrible reason for this to be precipitated, but I think that thinking should come into all of our design. We should be able to design buildings for mixed use, for living, working, playing, hospital use cases, and maximize utilization. Once we've built something, we better ensure that it's being used at least 90% of the time. Otherwise, we shouldn't be building it, right? That's the second pillar, ladies and gentlemen, designing for mixed use. The third pillar is design for operational zero waste. We did a big program, I think it was earlier this year, or maybe it was end of last year. This was in collaboration with the New York Center for Zero Waste Design, a lady called Claire Mifflin. She's an expert in the topic. We looked at how waste can be considered as material flow in buildings. And we looked at how buildings can be retrofitted or designed for smooth material flow and segregation. Bulk of the problem is that, like we all know what the problem is, right? Waste is contaminated by the time it gets even collected. By designing upfront for material flow and segregation, we can actually get better zero waste outcomes. Bulk of the waste generated is during the operational use of the building. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to focus on this. And we have to do, Professor Singhal spoke about systems thinking. So we'll have to have solutions that are the building scale, at the district scale, and at the urban scale, right? So please look up the Zero Waste Design Center and the Zero Waste Design Guidelines that came up for New York City. We've started doing something for Singapore. I'll keep you posted. Hopefully the next iteration of this conference, I can present some results. There's also a very interesting tool on the website, if you go and look at it. And I can request Surekha ji to circulate the links later. The tool is called a waste calculator. Depending on the typology, the square footage, the GFA basically, and the estimated number of footfalls, you can actually get an estimate of how much waste of different streams will get generated and plan for it. It's a lovely tool. I'll request all of you to use it and deploy it. We're trying to make that tool more predictive right now. Let's see how that goes. The fourth aspect, like I said, is design for operational cost efficiency. Waste of any type is not encouraged in the circular economy. So we have to design buildings for cost optimization. In Singapore, and I know it's happening in Mumbai. I was speaking with someone recently who's trying it out. How can we create digital twins of all the buildings in the country so that they can be remotely maintained and remotely analyzed, right? How can new business models come up? In circular economy, we talk about everything as a service, pay as you go. So should buildings, should elevators, for example, escalators, should they be on a pay as you use basis? This will dramatically alter incentive structures. It's a well-documented use case. Please look up the Philips lighting service in Netherlands a few years ago. They've sold their lighting division right now. But instead of selling bulbs, Philips sold lumens instead, a guaranteed availability of a certain lumens per square meter in the building. And this significantly changed how Philips designed the bulbs themselves, right? They designed them for remote management, reusability, and so on. So a lot of new thinking can evolve around this in terms of new business models, buildings and building materials as a service, right? Technology is evolving, BIM tools, digital twins, service-based business models are being tried out and becoming more common. This is our fourth pillar, ladies and gentlemen, design for operational cost efficiency. The fifth, like I said, is design for food production in a climate-constrained world where we cannot afford 40%, 50% of the food rotting along the supply chain. The most logical thing to do is to grow food close to consumption centers. The best food mile is the mile that's not created in the first place. So if there's food growing on the rooftop, that's probably the most optimal use case. But we'll have to redesign buildings to optimize them for food production. Again, very, very cutting edge thinking. We may see some of it in the new decade, in the next couple of decades. So just want to reinforce this and conclude, and happy to take questions. We started late, so I'm sort of condensing it. RENERGI's framework for circular built environments, ladies and gentlemen. 4 pillars: design for disassembly, design for mixed use, design for operational efficiency, design for operational zero waste, and maybe in the future, design for food production. We are optimistic that a combination of these pillars can make built environments in Asia and India more circular. I'll stop right here. Thank you for this opportunity. Would love to take questions and hear feedback and discuss more.